Hello?
Oh,
Okay, sorry.
crap.
Scared ya?
Knock that off. I'm so easily scared. This hurt.
Can you come talking to the mic while I listen?
Testing, testing, testing.
Hold on.
Te- testing, testing.
Can you test this one? Guess how late it is.
Hello,
Oh, wait a second. Try it again.
hello.
Got it. Okay, I'm gonna run to the restroom.
Just gonna chill out here.
Get in your headspace. You're shooting threes. You're Clayton Clark. Caitlin Clark.
That actually kind of works.
It does. This is your number streaming right now.
Sit down and take a little quiet time.
Yeah, I gotta start the. My other phone. So I got it up and going. And the cameras where they need to be.
Howdy, howdy.
Hi there. Just let you know we have live mics right now.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Just didn't want you to take a call from like your wife or something. and have
Oh,
it
that's
all
great.
taped.
Where is everybody?
They'll be here. And we do have the mics are all live right now, so if we're taking personal phone calls or anything, it would be streamed, so. So if Kim calls to pick up the milk, everybody would hear it right now.
Okay. Who gets the comfy chair?
Whoever gets to it
Maybe I'll
first.
sit back over.
Try to set up the cameras.
I always kind of wondered how that thing worked.
The cameras?
Not always does.
Well, maybe you can get taught.
Have you seen that?
Where's this?
I think it was put out by Alana. It's just how, people go, our rates are gonna go up. It's kind of a summary of Iowa law and how it all works.
I don't know if I've seen this.
What's that?
I don't know if I've seen this document.
Yeah. You might see it in what's doing about it. Sometimes I just send stuff to people, right? I don't, there's apparently
Do you wanna?
wait, I got one of them.
There's an extra.
I got one up here in my cup holder.
Oh, and there's one here too, and another one over here.
Yeah.
Actually, this one's normally in the back there.
My Iowa Hawkeye.
Hi, welcome in.
gonna be here tonight?
That's
Yes.
the plan.
I saw someone in the parking lot.
Yeah, both Alliant and Consumers Energy were invited, I believe, only Alliant. State president.
That kind of tracks.
We made sure to invite both of our utility providers. Area. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the daycare discussion thing. And we're going to, we're gonna shrink the size of it a little bit, so I don't know if that will, I know Don showed us services. I make it too big for us, but it's still being managed. But we identified the old daycare. with that Wall Street.
Okay, yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I know of the church. What their membership is getting involved with. Going to employers, having them send out questionnaires to Sally about needs and this and that. Because like up in Decorah, they built a brand new building. All the employees around get their money. And then what you get for the money is you get so many spots. You know.
For like a
So they
certain
want
amount
to
of
actually
years.
see you around.
Yeah.
I think we understand.
For a certain number of years.
What's your name?
So,
Zach, where are you at?
you know, depending.
I
Nice.
am,
The one on 12th Street.
if you know where the conference rooms are on the second floor, there's the engineering
There's
area.
grant money available.
Right when you walk into our area,
I think they want to
there's
do
some
something.
cabinets, that
Yep.
area is nuclear.
Yep.
I know some places that may be willing to. Some
Those product engineering,
So
that
that,
and a whole bunch of nuclear parts.
I'm Brock Engineering.
Just don't issue. Get it granted, you know, just to keep it. So it's really
Keep going
nice
to the
that
north.
they've
So I
got
would.
some
like,
plans to
okay.
be turned in.
Okay.
Doesn't say. What's your list?
What's that?
Durbin's.
Kirby.
On
Okay.
that
Well, it's nice to meet you, Michelle.
Because that's where they put the kind of roundabout. That drop off kit. So I don't know, you might have to do it kind of quick. See. Until we get everything else done. Place, knowing if we don't get it.
Playground equipment. That's what it's about.
I think there's still playground, I know it's about a 6 foot, chain link fence around the back. It's all set up. Rooms. They've all got bathrooms, they've all got all the stuff they need. So. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hello.
I'm Kyle.
Mike Audioff.
Michael, nice to meet you.
I am definitely.
Dan, nice to meet you. I just want to let you know I'm here on behalf of Line Division. I'll be available to answer questions. That's basically the gist of it.
Yeah, we had waterworks doing this last weekend, it's kind of informal
Okay.
discussion, so.
Yeah.
There'll be time, but with the
Yeah.
case, we come up and it'll just kind of be
You
a dialogue.
You bet.
There's
You bet.
not necessarily a set questions or anything.
Okay.
Well, some of that might just have to go to the measures back, you know.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm certainly not an engineer, so.
Yeah.
Nice to meet
Thank you for
Good to meet
coming.
Oh, my pleasure.
The one down there that was saw that in the.
Well, it was, right next to the,
On to it,
the law office.
whenever the time comes for their fills up.
Used to be the Department of Human Services down on State Street. It's good. Just like,
Couple blocks down.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's a. Really, his office, everything is fired out into offices.
Yeah.
It's
Been a long time.
Is it the
Public
state?
defenders and or something.
Okay.
It's been empty for about 5 years.
Really?
Because they moved up to the annex.
How many presidents?
Oh, okay. Wait, oh. That's interesting.
The playground, I can take it out, I don't know what there is behind there, if it's an alleyway behind there.
I mean, for playground equipment, you could. I don't know. Don't need that much space. You know.
I think it would, I don't know if there's a United Place. I don't know if there's like a, I don't know if there's an empty lot, if there's like a house with a or I. Usually I can't.
Well. To me, that's almost a better spot. It's not as well set, but it's set up. Protect yourself.
You're retired now.
I got all this sheetrock equipment. And like, yeah, this for our house, you know, that's how I got the equipment. Oh, boy, I'd like to do that for you. You know, I don't have the texture sprayer, you know, you have to get a texture sprayer. I do. Well, it's, they'd be about. What? You know,
I don't know how that works.
yeah. I got so much stuff I can use. Let's see how much of all this stuff.
So the vulture brand, not Milwaukee.
No, I'm from the bloodlines. It's Milwaukee was a little more expensive. They're better. They're better.
Hey, how are you, friend? Cool pants, cool jeans.
Oh, thanks.
That stuff.
Okay, and then my dog's like, wow, get her.
Yep,
How many are there?
they're good stuff. Now mine is like great, but it's also but better than.
Yeah.
And I am not. And Walter, engineer.
Yeah.
I saw some.
That's the problem.
Okay, it's 5 o'clock. This is the City of Marshalltown Planning and Zoning Commission meeting in City Hall Chambers, 10 West State Street on August 13th, 2026. And I'll call the meeting to order. I'll do roll call. Mahala?
Here.
Deidre absent. Benjamin?
Here.
Patrick?
Here.
Stephen?
Here.
First item on the agenda, approval of meeting minutes from July 16th, 2026. Does anybody see any changes that need to be made to those minutes? Hearing none, the stand approved as distributed. Item 2, recommendation on special use permit application for 1776 Governor Road. Clayton, you want to give us an overview?
Good evening, Clayton Under, Assistant Director of Housing Community Development. In front of you tonight is a special use permit for in-ground solar array at 1776 Governor Road. Applicant is proposing 3 rows of ground-based solar panels that would generate 200 kilowatts of electricity for use within the building. Mechdyne had recently purchased the building. I did provide you an outline of all the questions you should review as part of a special use permit application. I'm not going to go through those in detail, but we can dive into them if needed. I do want to point out that the property is zoned general industrial. It is on the comprehensive plan as heavy industrial. So we do not explicitly address solar use within our comprehensive plan, but this would be consistent with general usage in the industrial area and would not prevent implementation of our current nor our draft comprehensive plan, which we'll review later this evening. Happy to go into further detail if needed, answer any questions, but staff is recommending approval of this.
Documentation was pretty thorough on this. So.
Thank you.
Questions? I'm fairly familiar with this property, and I think it's an ideal location for it. It's fairly far from the road and nothing really around it. So, I need a recommendation.
I'll move to recommend.
A second.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Call the roll. Benjamin.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Stephen.
Yes.
Mahala.
Yes.
And John Boston, yes. That passed. Next item is a public hearing and recommendation on a rezoning application for 707 East Lynn Street and 505 South 8th Avenue.
Sorry, let me get my 205 South 8th Avenue.
205, sorry.
I'm not sure what you said, but this is a request by Marshalltown Company to rezone these 2 properties I have outlined here on the screen in red, to rezone them from their current medium density residential zoning district to general industrial zoning district. Staff is recommending that the rezoning be subject to conditions to restrict certain land uses. Those are outlined in the draft ordinance. Those had been accepted by Marshalltown Company with some of their other recent rezonings. The intended usage of this site is for off-street parking facilities associated with their building expansions on the east side of South 8th Avenue. It is in our current comprehensive plan as low-density residential as a future land use. However, in the draft plan that you'll review later this evening, it is changed to light industrial. So staff would recommend that it's consistent with our plan, at least in the direction that we appear to be intending to go with our plan should that get fully adopted.
This is consistent with about 3 or 4 other requests from Marshalltown Company.
Yeah,
we've
last year, we did some parking lot expansion up along the north side of South 8th Avenue at Main. They also did a minor parking expansion here on East Lynn Street as well. You can actually see the new parking lots there with the new pavement. So it's just some additional off-street parking is proposed there. I did provide you the full list of questions you should consider as part of your review of this. Happy to go into detail or answer questions if needed. Staff is recommending approval.
This is a public hearing, so we'll open it to the public if anybody has any question at 5:06 PM. Anybody here to address this topic? No one approaching the podium, so at 5:07 PM, I'll close the public hearing. And I need a recommendation on this topic.
I'll move to recommend.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. I'll call the roll. John Boston, yes. Mahala,
Yes.
Benjamin,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
and Stephen.
Yes.
Okay, that's number 3. Number 4, public hearing and recommendation on the Reimagine Marshalltown Comprehensive Plan.
Good evening yet again. I am not going to read the whole comprehensive plan to you. That would be
163 pages.
too much for you probably. But I'll give you a brief synopsis of this. You did see this also at your last meeting, but tonight is the public hearing for it. We've been working on our comprehensive plan update since mid-2025. We've held numerous key engagements. We've had a plan advisory committee made up of community representatives. They provided guidance to city staff throughout this process. City staff, as well as our consultant, RDG, held numerous listening sessions with community stakeholders to learn more about what we need to know. We did community outreach. We went to the schools. We went to major employers throughout the community. We had our website online for people to provide comments there. We did hold a community roundtable on that, held a design workshop, and I believe we also had an open house at some point. That may have been the design workshop. So we had quite a lot of opportunities for community engagement throughout this process. As a highlight of main areas looked at the plan: land use and design, mobility, housing and neighborhoods, parks, trails and the environment, economic development, and sub areas within the community that we wanted to look at in a little more detail. One of those key areas was the old hospital site, for example. We also looked at facilities and infrastructure, and then wrapped it up with an implementation chapter. How are we actually going to accomplish what we want to accomplish? This is intended to be a living document. I think that's important to keep in mind. It is okay if we need to change this in the future. We can't anticipate every possibility. Now we are looking out 20 years in the future. So as opportunities arise, or if there's new emerging technologies we need to explore, we have opportunities to do that, and there's guidance within our plan to direct us to continue to monitor and develop regulations when and if necessary. Staff is recommending approval of the comprehensive plan, and I'd be happy to dive into it in deeper detail if needed, or answer any questions if needed.
Wait and see what the public brings up on this topic. I'm going to open the public hearing at 5:10 PM. If anybody wants to make a comment, please approach the podium, give their name, address, and we'll limit it to 3 minutes each. So, and stick to the topic of the comprehensive plan, please.
Sorry, I jumped the gun coming up here a little bit. Zach Hamilton, 2250 Shady Oaks Road. I presume you're familiar with the comprehensive plan. As part of the plan, the Shady Oaks corridor is included as future industrial development. And one section of it, section that I live on actually, is actually listed as more near term for annexation as an industrial development property. And one of the things I did not see as I looked through all of the pages of that document, I did see over a page that deals with how to annex properties, even leading up to involuntary annexation, but didn't see anything in the way of how the city plans on accommodating residents who currently live out there. Rural jurisdictions are something that's really not in the purview of the city right now. And as I've read through the zoning ordinances, the current zoning ordinance really do not reflect a rural community much in any way at all. As an example, this is a calibrated sound level meter. I had it calibrated this morning actually at a local test lab, calibration lab, and I did a sound reading, a baseline sound reading at my property of 44 to 45 dBA. The current allowable city limit is 60 dBA, daytime noise in a residential area. To the human ear, that's 3 times louder than 45 dBA. And so if current city zoning ordinance were applied to that area into the rural residents living out there, it could realistically and legally become 3 times louder for us, just as one example. We also would lose many of the privileges that we paid extra for to live out there. Freedom to have animals and livestock, ability to fire a rifle, privacy from distant neighbors, peaceful, quiet countryside, lower taxes, looser regulations on construction and remodeling, to name a few. And so depending on how this all played out, not only would our lives be impacted, but also our property values, because in a lot of ways our property values are directly tied to those privileges. And so my concern is that I don't see any explicit language that says the city intends to consider in their ordinances the specific context of that area. And so I'm hopeful that if this does get approved tonight, that at least that will be something that will be addressed in the relatively near future, considering that we know that that area is currently actively being prospected by developers, and that's a very near-term reality for us. And so,
You know, it stated in there that the city of Marshalltown almost always does it as voluntary annexation.
that is the intent, but it also references the 80-20 rule. And part of legally involuntarily annexing something is to have a comprehensive plan in place that shows that that is part of the city's intent. So this is a legal step towards being able to perform involuntary annexation on properties. And so I recognize that that's not the desire, but it is a possible reality that we'd have to be faced with. So
I can't think of a instance in the last 45 years that I've been involved with this stuff where we've done an involuntary annexation. So
okay,
just so you know.
that's good to know. I'll remain optimistic on it,
And
but
that
I just
gets
wanted
a
to
lot
voice
of
my
reviews
concern.
with the city council too, so you get a lot of input when they're talking about it.
What's that?
Annexation. You know, the city council does a lot of reviews on it, and it becomes a public hearing and everything at the city council level before you can do an annexation.
Okay, but even if we weren't annexed and a property was able to be built next to us, it would fall under the city's current zoning ordinance, which would potentially put a residential home property, a rural residential property, in very close proximity to an industrial business that would significantly impact our way of life. And so I'm hoping that that can be considered in how the zoning ordinances are handled. Thank you.
And if that would happen, just so you know, our buffer requirements are fairly stringent from an industrial property close to a residential property.
Even those, though, as I've read them in the zoning ordinance, what is considered a large buffer in town is very different than what's considered a large buffer in the country. So
Understand?
something to consider.
Thanks. Is there anybody else?
Erin Carpenter, 802 North 4th Street. Sorry, I was a little late. So I am speaking tonight as a member of the Reimagine Marshalltown Steering Committee. In my day job, I work in urban forestry and natural resources, so these kind of things are very close to my heart. This plan is something that our community should really be proud of. It's a 20-year vision. There was a lot of public input that went into it. And I also work in things like this comprehensive plan, but with small cities, like under 10,000 people. And there are always people who are like, well, we didn't hear about this. When did we know about this? But in planning things like this, we can't reach every single person. We can try, but they also have to be paying attention. So I wish that we had had a little better public participation. I do. There was a couple of meetings towards the end where we did not have as much participation as I would have liked to see. the beginning, like we had really good start with the open house. It was packed. The room over there in the Coliseum was absolutely packed. Did any of you guys get to go? No. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I'm excited about this plan because it takes a step towards treating our trees and our parks and our green spaces not just as visual amenities, but as functional infrastructure. The street tree framework can help actively manage stormwater runoff, protect pavement, and cut down on neighborhood heat, which directly lowers heating and cooling costs for families. And in a town that has been through disaster after disaster, in Urban Canopy, we say we've been through 3, the tornado, the derecho, and emerald ash borer. Our canopy and our natural systems are protective assets against extreme weather. And planning for that and cultivating it just makes sense. So I would like to just say I think this plan hits a great balance between smart growth, public health, and long-term community resilience. And I highly encourage you to vote to adopt it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Lane Perry, 28 State Street. First, I'd like to thank the Commission, city staff, RDG, and everyone who contributed to reimagine Marshalltown. I recognize that a great deal of work has gone into this plan over a long period of time, and I was not around for the majority of that effort. My comments are intended to be constructive additions to the conversation, not a criticism of or dismissal of the work that's already been done. I'm also in favor of this being adopted. But I also sent the Commission a longer, very rough draft of my concerns and recommended amendments. I'll just highlight a few of the key points here. I noted concerns about trail access and connectivity in the southeast and northeast parts of town, limited transit service for shift workers, seniors, and other transit-dependent residents, the need for additional housing affordability and housing production strategies, and the importance of tying the plan's equity goals to clear implementation measures and accountability. I also encouraged stronger outreach and engagement with Marshalltown's Hispanic and immigrant communities to ensure the plan reflects the needs of all residents. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing at 5:19 p.m. Any comments or questions from the commissioners for Clayton? Hearing none, I'll call the roll for, or I need a recommendation first.
I'll move to recommend.
I'll second.
That.
Okay, I got a motion and second, so I'll call the roll. Patrick,
Yes.
Stephen,
Yes.
John Boston, yes. Mahala,
Yes.
and Benjamin.
Yes.
That also passes. The next item is a work session on data center regulations. Clayton, where are we at?
Before we officially move in, I was speaking with the city's attorney, so I would just like to state that if we could please enter into the record, I am recusing myself from further participation in this matter due to the potential for a conflict of interest or an ethical conflict related to my legal practice and representation of clients. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, question, does that mean that you won't help us with parameters or just that you won't vote?
I will not be voting for, I mean, I can participate as a member as well.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right.
But you're here to count as a quorum if we ever need it, so. Clayton, you've got the floor.
All right. So it's been a week since we last met. So my staff report to you was more of a summary synopsis of our previous meeting. So I won't go through that structured item too much, but just as a reminder, I am generally, I'm on the wrong item there. I'm recommending we generally follow a process of identifying goals, then complete our research and analysis and follow that up with policy and implementation of our plan. So we're still kind of in that goals and research phase, a little bit of analysis. All of that can kind of happen simultaneously, but we've started to identify some goals out of our plan. Just kind of some of the themes that I heard that emerged from the meeting last week. We need to develop a common understanding of data center types, scales, terminology, and development characteristics. Importance of considering regulations that focus on durable characteristics of development, such as facility scale, infrastructure demand, noise, water usage, and other measurable impacts, rather than using rapidly changing technology as the terminology we use. Might need to look at different regulatory approaches based on different types or scales of data centers. We need to balance economic development opportunities with potential environmental, infrastructure, and community impacts, and need to determine whether existing city regulations adequately address potential data center impacts, or whether additional standards may be appropriate. Some of the topics we looked at, data center classifications, we didn't really touch on electrical, but we did touch on water supply last time. Noise, we touched on a little bit, site design. So we touched on a lot of these a little bit. Tonight, we do have representatives of Alliant Energy. I did also invite Consumers Energy. I don't know if we have anyone from them. I don't believe so, but I did invite both of our electrical utilities. We do have Alliant here this evening that could participate in a discussion similar to we had with Waterworks last week. I also got a couple other items we can look at this evening relating to data center examples, kind of getting into that type scale thing. I also put together a draft agenda for our roundtable that we could take a look at, make sure that we're giving people an expectation of what they're coming to the meeting for.
Why don't we do that after we have the Alliant person?
Yep, I was thinking we probably end on the roundtable items. Would you like to start with the Alliant, the electrical?
Yeah.
All right. Well, at this time, I'd maybe invite up our Alliant friends up here to assist with me. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Well, I think it'll be me. Hi, good evening. My name's Kylie Miller. I'm the lead community engagement consultant for data centers for Alliant Energy. My role basically is to ensure that you have access to information about energy delivery and large loads. I didn't come with a formal presentation. Clayton just invited me to be here this evening. So I will attempt to answer questions as they come forward, or I may simply acknowledge those questions and go back and find answers for you.
I think you were here and addressed the city council also.
I was approximately 6 weeks ago. Early on, we provided a very short presentation simply summarizing how it is that Alliant serves these loads and protects other customers from spreading that cost, and why, in fact, when we see load growth, it has a benefit for all customers on the system.
Basically, it's helping pay for overhead.
That's very simple and great way to put it. Yeah, you did better than I ever would. Thank you, John.
You guys have any questions for this gentleman? Your name again?
My name is Kylie Miller, and I'd be very happy to hand out my business card. I know it's not a common name, so I had some buddies in the Army that kind of made fun of it, but we won't do that tonight. And for folks in the audience, I'll just leave these here. Anybody's welcome to reach.
So when a potential data center shows up, what happens?
Okay, great question. So first and foremost, we are receiving inquiries from potential data centers and other industrial development projects all the time. historically, I used to run economic development programs in my hometown, Mount Pleasant, and then up in the Spencer, Iowa area. And we really started land first. But now, because energy is becoming so important for development, a lot of companies are starting with the energy delivery question. So they might contact us and say, we are interested in a specific area of the state or even a community like Marshalltown, and we would like to know about the opportunity and the timelines for serving a particular load. So a load size, whatever the size of that project. Depending on the size, there's research that's involved, engineering research. That could include our great transmission partners, ITC Midwest, that own the transmission system that we serve. Or if it's smaller, it could just be Alliant. But we go back to our engineers and we say this is the challenges, the parameters that we're trying to meet. Please tell us how we would solve that problem, how we would serve that load. The engineers come back with an estimate of timeline and costs. We then go back to that potential customer and say, okay, it's going to take X number of years to build out the transmission to serve this load. And the estimated cost is Y. That is the burden that you have to bear, because Alliant guarantees that new large loads coming onto our system pay 100% of the cost to serve those loads. So once that's happened, that we've provided that information for them, then it can go a couple of different ways. It can go into the community side. They may already be engaged with the community and starting to talk about how do we support the local community? What are the concerns and the opportunities associated with that? Or it may stay with us for some time as we work through conversations about the cost to serve, because each data center, the Iowa Utilities Commission has authorized Alliant to have what's called an individual customer rate for large loads, and this allows us a lot more protections for our other customers, and all of that is subject to negotiation with the company and then review by the Iowa Utilities Commission. So that when that process is done, it would culminate ultimately with a data center project, assuming community support.
I've had several people ask me the question of, okay, we put in a data center and it's a certain size, then they want to expand. They have to go through that process all over again?
Yes, there may not be a need for full-scale study again, because when we evaluated the capacity and the initial request, we may have determined early on the scalability.
Depend on if they're wanting to add 10% or they're.
It really would. So this is one of those questions that's it depends. Okay. But in the event that the initial agreement that the IUC, Iowa Utilities Commission, had reviewed covered that first load, then there would be a second review and contract process.
Anything else you can think of you want to relay?
Well, what I'd like to share with you tonight, just because I can, it's great to have you. First off, thanks for doing this. This is a challenging position that you have. And I do a lot of public speaking about economic development and community development around the state. And increasingly, I've been featuring Marshalltown because of back in 2024, Marshalltown hosted the Professional Developers of Iowa. And I just never been in a community where the local small business owners seem more willing to brag about all that was happening. So I think that's really an incredible commendation to the work that's being done. I'd like to say that that's as a person, my personal comment. We do have with us our commitment to customers. It states simply what we are guaranteeing as it pertains to not sharing costs from large load growth. I'd like to give each one of you a copy of this little brief commitment to customers. I'll leave some more here. In simple statements, they state, we will not, new data center customers or large load customers pay 100% of the costs. All customers benefit from the improvement on the system. And when done in partnership with the community, the result is growth that benefits everyone. So I'm happy to share this, and you have my business card always available to answer questions.
while you're handing that out, I'll share some of the questions I think I've heard through the community members asking.
Sure.
That
Do
we
you
can-
want me to stay up here?
Yeah, you could stay up
Okay.
here. We can have a conversation. But maybe you could help talk us through how our rate increases decided. I know it's largely the Iowa Utilities Commission's purview, not the city's. Can you maybe help educate us a little bit there on how rate increases are reviewed and approved in the state of Iowa?
Yes, not an area of core knowledge set for me, but Alliant Energy on a periodic basis will go to the Iowa Utilities Commission and ask for a rate case. It's called a rate case. It's an appeal for an adjustment in rates to meet the new parameters of our expenses. That is then reviewed in a public process by the Iowa Utilities Commission, culminating in a negotiated rate that's published to the public and approved by the Iowa Utilities Commission. So there's opportunity for public input. There's also opportunity for what are known as interveners, which are entities that are commenting, maybe large customers, et cetera, to intervene and make their cases known. And in fact, right now, Alliant is in a 5-year rate freeze through 2029. So we've told the Iowa Utilities Commission that we do not intend to increase rates or do not intend to request a rate increase through 2029. And it was in fact the expectation of load growth from data centers that allowed us to do that.
Yeah, so I think it's just important to remember that we as a city do not set those rates.
Right.
That's the utility and the Iowa Utility Commission in tandem together. What we do can certainly impact some of those items, but I just want to make sure it's clear to everyone that we are not the entity that sets those rates.
Can you talk about the capacity level for Marshalltown? I mean, we got a new power plant. There's another one being built. We got all the wind turbines, all the solar being added. What's our situation?
Well, my area of knowledge is more towards the transmission, and Marshalltown's positioned very well from a transmission standpoint because you happen to be at the nexus of significant build out of transmission across the upper Midwest. That's very exciting for the community because that makes you more competitive for companies, whether manufacturing data centers or otherwise, that are heavy energy users. Of course, generation capacity is critically important. I would say that Alliant builds we don't build speculatively. So our responsibility when a new customer wants to come onto our system, it's important to realize as a regulated utility, we don't choose our customers. If somebody wants to connect in our service territory, our obligation is to serve them, and we must find a way to do that affordably and reliably, right? So with the generation coming on the system, if a new load comes on the system, we're obligated to procure the generation resources to meet that load. But yes, of course, the generation build-out is very advantageous.
I did have our
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm a mess, always.
Hijacking my podium.
I know, man. Well, you didn't know you were going to tell me you were going to come up here and hang out.
I did have our GIS coordinator prepare 2 maps for us that kind of help illustrate service territory of electricity. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. So this is more of a zoomed out regional approach, looking at Marshalltown here in the center. I roughly did 75 miles, which felt like a good distance. But really, everything here in pink is going to be Interstate Power and Light, Alliant, but you can tell this bottom inset really covers a lot. There's a lot of sections within the state, but also within our area specifically. The green is Consumers Energy. This is a zoomed in version closer into Marshalltown, probably where we're more interested. But we can see that, you know, our growth areas, our 2-mile boundary around the existing city limits does encompass both Consumers and Alliant Energy. So those are our 2 providers in the area. The 2 miles, just to be clear, that's because the state statutory extraterritorial review authority is 2 miles. So that's why we did 2 miles.
Yeah. And Consumers has access to that same transmission system that you're on, right?
Yes, sir.
So that was just to help give some visuals of where our utility providers are. I think this regional one's also good to show, you know, what happens in Cedar Rapids, what happens south of Iowa City. Those matter to us as well. because they're on our electrical grid. But what's happening down in Des Moines, that's on Mid-American's grid. So, yes, it's important to look at, but the electrical impacts are not the same.
I think as a general rule, the public may not be aware of just how broken up these territories really are. And it's nothing other than a matter of interest, but this is why across the street there might be another provider. And it is challenging from an economic development standpoint, just simply to know where the boundaries are sometimes.
Commissioners, any questions for Kelly?
Just very briefly, so rate calculations are done on a grid-wide basis, not necessarily city by city. Is that fair?
That is correct.
Okay. And so for, something that might change in our city would impact every other person on the grid as well, correct? It's not it's not local changes necessarily
That's largely correct. I think that would be something, if you really want to dive into how rates are calculated, I'd rather get an expert that could be here and really talk to you about that. But in general, yes, it's a system-wide. Load comes onto the grid, that offsets the cost to administer that grid.
Thank you.
Well, I want to say thank you for the invitation. Like I said, I'm available to answer questions, and it's a privilege to meet all of you.
Thank you.
And before you run away, I'm going to pump you with some other questions.
Oh, okay.
How would you envision the city and Alliant partnering with a data center project? Bringing you in on the review early, I'm assuming, is a plus. How do you kind of envision that relationship?
Well, first and foremost, the city owns its development process, right? Where Alliant Energy is a partner in economic development. Our responsibility is to serve the energy load in our service territory. So the decisions that the city makes are relative to, any zoning issues, et cetera, are your own. We certainly want to be there hand in hand to support this project or this this process for a data center or large load, because energy is so critically important. And there's timing considerations, there's right of way considerations, but first foremost, it's because we want to be, an available partner and an expert on the energy side.
Thank you.
So yes, in short, please get us in as early as possible.
That's very similar to what we heard from Waterworks as well.
Yes.
And short of knowing the specific, it's probably getting closer. Short of knowing the specifics of any one project, which at this time we don't have any applications in, it's speculating. We're throwing darts at a dartboard with a blindfold on.
Yep.
Maybe I don't know if that's a good analogy, but
Just as long as they're not in the way. That's the main thing.
Anything else electric related at the moment? I'm sure you might stick around through the end of our discussion
Sure,
this evening.
happy to.
In case anything else pops up.
I don't think so. Clayton, go ahead and cover the rest of your topics, and
Let me get out of your hair.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, one of the things that came out of our last meeting was what are types of data centers and some terminology. So I wanted to cover some of that with this evening. Here's kind of types of data centers and common industry terms that I was identifying. I'm not going to read the definitions, but they're available. Enterprise data centers, co-location, sometimes called multi-tenant, hyperscale, cloud data center, edge data centers, some other common industry terms, artificial intelligence data center, managed service data center, modular, high performance computing data center. So this is what I'm finding from the industry. One of the problems with it is they're usually referencing a business model rather than a physical structure. A data center can be multiple things at once.
This sounds more like what they're putting in the data center than what we would try to control.
Yeah, like a hyperscale is really getting to the scale of it, but you could have a hyperscale co-location. You could have a hyperscale AI. You could have a hyperscale enterprise.
Yeah.
So there's different aspects there. So I would maybe steer us away from using some of this terminology within code. I think it will be outdated quickly, and I would rather see us focus on the physical elements of it.
It's a little more like that Ford, Chevy, Chrysler analogy of let's control the car. Let's not try to control the business.
Yep. So that's some of the terminology I was coming up with. Today I got you 12 different examples of existing data centers here in the state of Iowa. There are many more. I just picked 12. No, not necessarily a rhyme or reason. This tried to give you a good sense of the scale across them. And I only picked projects that are currently built or actively being built. So I did not include anything that is planned.
Okay.
So I'll kind of run through these just as an example. They all kind of have a general site, graphic map on it. I tried to find an image of the building, and then I gave you a table here that kind of lists the individual building scale, because I think you can have that impact. You have a bunch of large buildings, that has a different impact than if you have a bunch of small buildings. So the individual building scale matters, but also the overall development scale likely matters. So like this is an example down in Ankeny. It just got built really recently, so it's not, all the images aren't up to date, and it's I think it's fully done, but this is 138,000 square feet data center, one building. I'm going to kind of fly through these and we can stop if needed. This is so that's in Ankeny. This is in Cedar Falls. It's 12,000 square feet. I'm a little confused by this one because it's saying legal on the building, but everything's telling me it's a data center, but it also has what appears to be generators or coolers. So we might want to look at that one a little bit more, but that's a small case study. Over in Hiawatha, we have a 16,000 square foot building. In Marion, an 18,000 square foot building. Over in Council Bluffs, 118,000 square foot single building. Over in Bettendorf, 56,000 square foot building. Then we start to get into some of these more multi-building campuses. Down in Altoona, you have a 30,000 and 46,000 square foot building split into two buildings here. And then we start getting into probably what most people would, I think, consider hyperscale type sizes. We got the Meta campus down in Altoona. Quite a few buildings. Two of them were actually temporary. That surprised me. But total of 3.7 million square feet under roof currently on 600 plus acres. Microsoft in West Des Moines, which I knew they had a campus. I actually didn't realize it was split into two different campuses spread throughout their town. So there's going to be two examples of Microsoft. But here, this is off of Interstate 35 on the southwest side of the Des Moines Metro. They have 1.2 million square feet, over 155 acres. The second Microsoft campus, they have just shy of 1 million square feet here, over 164 acres. This one, I think they might still be building one more building on site, it appears, so that number's probably going to increase. Apple campus in Waukee, very large site footprint, 2,077 acres. But it looks like they've just only recently must have started building out because they only have one large building that I found records of at 315,000. A couple real small buildings on site, but I gotta imagine this place is going to build out with more big buildings. So, but that very big footprint of land they own. Then we have QTS in Cedar Rapids, 2.7 million. I must admit the over 1 million square, almost 1.2 million square feet under roof shocked me. I knew they were big, but I didn't realize they were that big. And that's over 615 acres. So, kind of gives you a sense of scale that, maybe the regulations for, a smaller 18,000 square foot building maybe aren't this, maybe they should be, maybe they shouldn't be the same as that 2,000 acre Apple site. To me personally, they feel like very different animals.
Still thinking small, medium, large somehow in this, if we can.
But I would like to share this at the community roundtable, get people's input about like, which of these would you consider small? Which would you consider medium, large, very large, things of that nature.
I
And
like the pictures of the ones that look a little more like an office building than just a big concrete shell.
yeah, like this one here looks really nice. If I didn't know better, I'd say it's just an office building, probably. That would be my initial thought, but that's, Cologix is the business there.
Unless they're renting
I
space
don't
for
know
a
what
legal
their,
firm.
I don't know what their, what like the water usage or electrical usage is on those. I'd probably have to dig deeper, and I don't know how easy it would be to find that, but we can. But this at least gets us to some of that physical size of, square footage and site area elements. So I don't know if there's any discussion or conversation we want to have surrounding, the types and the scales of data centers.
What do you guys think?
It'd be interesting to get feedback.
I think we'll get some feedback on this in 2 weeks at the roundtable.
Is there any particular type of feedback you're hoping to get from the public on this type of topic?
Probably size of the buildings and the appearance of the buildings in my mind. What about you guys?
Yep. Yeah, and I personally think it's contextual. There are areas where certain buildings make sense and size doesn't matter and architectural standards don't matter, and there are areas where it's critical. So it's helping identify those different areas.
Well, and the setbacks and the buffering for a 12,000 square foot building is going to be a lot different than for a, hundreds of thousands of square foot building. So,
When I imagine we'd want to look at it in terms of we regulate the individual building, but also the size of the campus. So, hey, just because you break it out into 10 small buildings, the collective whole, the aggregate, can still have a large impact. So it might be a large campus composed of small buildings. That's something we could explore. Kind of a floor to area ratio.
Yeah, my biggest worry is just, I guess, passing anything and not realizing there's a consequence to another industrial user in town. Because I personally believe this should apply to any industrial building in town, not specifically data centers. I think so. We're setting a bar for industrial development, so we got to be really careful. We have some critical users that are expanding, and I'd hate to tie their hands because we got scared.
a couple items that Clayton and I have talked about, like appearance, that we could apply toward any building that uses precast concrete walls, for example. So it isn't just a sheet of concrete. And that would be good for anything in the industrial area.
One thing I liked about the images I found, one in particular, the one in Bettendorf, I would not have guessed that's a data center, honestly. The trees up front made it really hard to see. This was about the best street view image I could find, and it was, I don't even know if it's a good reflection, like you could barely see the building. So I think it's a good example of how getting effective buffering via landscaping could be one mechanism.
Yeah.
Now, bear in mind that that addresses the visible elements of it. Landscaping can certainly help with noise as well, but we got to be mindful that different buffering mechanisms for different things that need buffered.
Also, the one view that you showed where you could, that legal building,
Yeah.
go back to that one. You can really see the turbines or cooling or whatever it is there.
Yeah.
And to me, that should be screened a lot more than it is.
Yeah, and that's the ability to see that is why I'm inclined to think that this is in fact a data center. They must just have a secondary tenant or something
Yeah.
in the building. But yeah, I would agree that those are pretty upfront and visible on a site like that.
Yeah. In some areas of town, that'd be fine. And in some special districts that match industrial development. Close to housing, close to our residential neighborhoods, it wouldn't. But I think we got to be mindful that anything we do, getting carried away with architectural standards when we're talking about an industrial district out by a power plant, is going to hurt all of the landowners out there that may want to develop their industrial land. Makes us much less attractive to industries that may come in and want to buy that land. So we got to be really careful not to get carried away trying to make things pretty next to a big old power plant. But there are areas of town we absolutely have to fight tooth and nail to protect with architectural standards. So I think getting feedback will be critical, especially on where in town it impacts the most.
And I think that ties back in with our conversation last week about our industrial might just need to be split into multiple districts. Maybe it's a light industrial, heavy industrial, or light industrial, general industrial.
Critical. I think that's
I think
absolutely
we have
critical.
to look at that.
Yep.
Yeah, that seems to be a recurring thing. Mahala, Benjamin, both are fairly quiet.
Any other
I'm gonna
questions
prompt
for
you.
Clayton? If you think of something, send him a message,
No questions for me. I think we pretty much hit on it and are open to hearing a lot more from a wider audience as well. I think for me personally, some of the things I picked up on are just the idea of, we have the big topics that we need to consider. One of those is, I guess, scalability or the resilience of whatever ordinance that we put into place. And so, for example, if we're differentiating our definitions and our regulations by size, just considering the fact that maybe what can be done in a, what we now characterize as a mid-sized building, that may change just as quickly as technology progresses. And so maybe a mid-sized building ends up being more of a nuisance than we imagine it might be now. And so just making sure that we're recognizing that as a possibility and either going back to the drawing board later or making our ordinances resilient in that way. And then also, I know this has been touched on, but just making sure we're preserving, for people coming in that we're encouraging the things that we want other people to do, like with the canopy cover. So.
Yep. One of the things that we'll need input from the public on, but some of the homework for this group is it sounds like at present the mindset is maybe differentiating based on like small, medium, large. Maybe we have a very large category as well. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but also be thinking these things out loud at the same time. Where are those thresholds? What makes something small versus medium? What makes something large versus very large?
I don't even know if I like categorizing them like that.
Okay.
Because to me, if I look at it like any office building, there's a required green space. There's, we have rules that limit the size of a development. But if we regulate the size of these buildings, it's going to regulate the size of Emerson. It's going to regulate the size of Lennox or JBS. We have to be equal as long as they have the same impact on their surrounding properties of being loud and unsightly industrial uses. So that's my concern is we get carried away trying to define data centers down to this tiny little thing. And in all reality, they need to be regulated in the same way all industrial uses are regulated. We need to be common. I don't think we can get too carried away. I think we can define data centers and responsible ones with water consumption, electrical consumption, and necessary infrastructure. But beyond that, it's an industrial use. It's loud and it's unsightly. But all the uses should play by the same rules, in my opinion.
So how would you differentiate, like if we did go the route of splitting general industrial into two districts, for example, do we still say data centers are allowed in both? Do we put some restrictions in place? Do we have two categories? Lynn County, for example, is one of the places that introduced this idea of categorization in my head. They have two categories, small and large. And then they have those in the use table as where in their use table of a small data center is allowed here, a large data center is allowed here. And I think small was allowed a little more broadly.
You don't do the small and large thing. You almost have to, by square feet, set the number of setback feet by the square feet of the building or something. So that, you know, a great big building is set back further from the road than a small building.
What do we do downtown with Emerson?
What's that?
What do we do downtown with Emerson? Are they're still in the industrial?
Yeah, they're general industrial.
They're general industrial. And
They're
that's
already-
likely one of our highest protecting spaces when it goes to classifying industrials.
They're already grandfathered. They're there. So.
Okay. So they're just they'd be non-conforming if we regulated building size.
Yeah, they could become legal non-conforming.
Legal non-conforming. Yeah.
Which, I mean, comes with its own drawbacks to
yeah,
it.
it's an interesting conversation. I don't know the answer. It's an interesting conversation. It's a problem.
Yeah.
That we get the joy of solving.
But if we're gonna have two industrial zones, I see Emerson being in a different industrial zone downtown in the old Nevada Street corridor from 18th Avenue. You know, that's.
I'd agree.
Two different.
Yeah, I'd imagine
industrial
Emerson
zones.
would probably be more of our light industrial or whatever term we have of that, you know.
But the square footage of that building is probably their current square footage is probably bigger than any of us would want to approve for a data center or any industrial use in that area in the future, and that leads to a problem.
Well, I don't see it as leading to a problem because historically that building's been there for
Oh yeah,
probably close to 100 years now. So
Kind of curious how big their building is right now.
next,
They are 343,000 square feet plus 89,000. So let's go up to 430 plus another 44, 470, 530,000, about 540,000 square feet seems to be about the footprint approximate there on the fly.
this is where?
Emerson,
Oh,
downtown. So if that gives you a sense of scale,
yeah.
well, and some
That's
of
an
those are
existing.
3 stories too, so you're counting square feet.
Yeah, I think that's also important. You know, for example, QTS in Cedar Rapids, which is about that 1.2 million. To my knowledge, that's single story.
Yeah.
High walls,
Right.
but that's 1.2 million on one floor. That takes up a much bigger land footprint than if you were to stack that.
Like the main office building for Fisher on the west side of Center Street there is like, I think it's four different levels in it.
And I think I did this last time, but just give a approximate of Lennox, which is another large building here in town. 940, probably with some of my math errors in there, probably closer to 1 million square feet for Lennox. So about twice the size of Emerson there. And that's not even taking into consideration the warehouse on the north side of Main Street there. So
How big is the
right.
warehouse by itself?
$300,000 approximate.
That's close to the size of the Governor Road factory. It's 360,000.
And, you know, I think this is a good exercise. You know, I gave you those examples around the state of existing facilities, which is nice to know what does the industry like to build. But I would encourage us to think when we're thinking of scale of individual buildings, individual sites, what makes sense in the Marshalltown context, not what makes sense in the Cedar Rapids context or the Council Bluffs or the Des Moines. We can look at them, but ultimately we want to make sure it fits in here in our community. So where should we categorize them? Where we set those thresholds may vary from other communities, and that's okay. So that gives you a couple large buildings.
We do have a use table, so we do a lot of specifications by use. You know, setbacks and that type of thing.
So that's kind of the scale and use type there. If we don't have anything else on that, I want to introduce draft agenda for the community roundtable. And I want to get your feedback on if there's specific items you want to cover there, but I wanted to give people an opportunity to review this before it gets posted. My intent would be to post this in our public agendas on our social or our public agenda notices board down here at the main entrance on social media. This is not an official meeting, so it won't be on our agenda center, but we will get the word out broadly, and I'd like to share this. Intent is doors open at 5 p.m., roundtable starting at 5:30, scheduled end time 7 p.m. I recognize that end time may fluctuate a little bit, but I think it's a good idea for us to set expectations of the time commitment people should expect for this. Purpose is to facilitate discussion regarding potential considerations associated with data center development and identify topics that may inform future review of city regulations, development standards, and review processes. The discussion is intended to gather input and explore policy considerations, and it is not intended to present or consider draft regulations or specific ordinance proposals. That would be the next step after we hear from people. General outline, welcome, opening remarks. I'd like to keep a staff overview brief in the beginning, general overview of why we're here, data centers, but I want to try to leave the bulk of the time for group work and large group work. So after we do that staff presentation, lead that into a facilitated discussion. And this is where I would envision small group breakouts. We'll literally have it set up, the room with round tables, probably 6 to 8 people per table. And we can prompt them with questions. For example, one of them is going to be going back to this sheet here, use this sheet here and start to categorize, what's small, what's medium, what's large, what do you like, what do you not like, use these examples. I'll need to work on it a little bit more, and I'm open to suggestions on other policy considerations, but I'd recommend we keep it kind of, try to categorize them and keep people to probably 10 to 15 minutes per topic, keep them moving along. And then after we have that group, then we come back together as a large whole group community, report out, ask people, what did your table talk about? What did you hear? What did we want to put up on the community idea board? And then we'll just wrap it up with closing remarks and next steps there at the 7 o'clock mark. So any initial feedback or comments on this draft agenda?
That looks fine. You wanted to start at 5:30 versus 5 o'clock, which is our normal starting time for P&Z.
Yeah, I wanted to start it at 5:30. I wanted to intentionally give people a half-hour time frame to get in, and that's how we advertised it. Hopefully, starting at 5:30 also pushes us, for people that maybe work till 5 p.m., they might have better opportunity to participate.
How do you vision this working? Somebody at the table takes notes and turns them in, or?
Yeah, there'll be various staff members. I hope we'll have representation from this group here as well. I'd like to split you guys up amongst tables. We actually want to be careful that we don't get a quorum at any one meeting because it's not an official meeting. But then it will be your job to take notes and learn from your community members. And I would really encourage you to listen, not talk. Certainly you're welcome to talk, but this is meant to be an opportunity for the community to educate us on what we need to know, what they want us to know, what they want us to hear. And I think that's best if we have our listening ears on. And you might have to jump between tables. I doubt we'll have enough staff and appointed officials to cover 100% of the tables 100% of the night, but jump between, that also gives you an opportunity to hear different points of view.
You might get a couple volunteers.
Yep. Are there any particular policy considerations or topics that you're hoping to see input from the community on?
I want to clarify something.
Yeah.
we can have all four of us there without it being a problem.
Yeah, you could be there. That's not a problem. I just wouldn't want all four. I just wouldn't want four members at one table.
Oh, I see us each having a different table.
Yes, I would. Ideally, you would each be at an individual table of
Yep.
your own.
Yep.
Hearing that way we get a
Inputs.
broader net out there.
Yep.
But yeah, as long as you're not at making decisions all at one table, shouldn't have any problems with quorum there. Same with if we have city council or mayor participation, as long as there's not a quorum at any one table,
Okay.
we should be fine. But back to my question, any specific topics you're hoping to get community feedback on, or do we want to leave it?
Everything we've talked about.
I know. I'm just trying to think of how to categorize them or try to put them together to get the prompts put together for people. We're probably talking 3 to 4 prompts most. I mean, because was that 5:50 to 6:35, 45 minutes there. If you do 10 minutes a topic, that's about 4. If you do 15, that's 3. So I would say probably 3 to 4 broad topics. Inevitably, people will probably go off on their own tangents, which is perfectly fine and acceptable. But I want to at least give some guidance and structure to help people along. But
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't have specific suggestions, I could certainly come up with them. I feel confident I could do that.
Probably in a better position to come up with what you want to hear than we are.
All right. So that's the draft agenda. I'll get that posted probably either. Well, I don't. If there's nothing to change here, I'll probably just try and get it out tomorrow. Just give people as much time as possible. If I move back to my staff report. Touched on that. Have we touched on noise in much depth yet?
What?
Have we touched on noise consideration much yet?
We just talked about the fact that our city ordinance right now looks pretty good.
I know that I've heard from community via social media out there in the world, should those numbers be changing? So let me just pull those up just as a refresher. I just want to make sure we cover noise because that is a very important topic on data centers specifically. So these are our standards currently. Right now, we just broadly have all residential is where we have the split between night and day. Then we have commercial, industrial, park. These are things that we could always update and get more specific if we felt we wanted to get more defined based on zoning district. We heard during our comprehensive plan public hearing suggestion about preserving and protecting rural residential. And there were specific comments to noise levels there, and we're not making any decisions tonight, but just to kind of get your brains going, should residential be more specific down to the zoning district, or do we stay broad and just say all residential? Is there a difference? Certainly residents in those areas, or at least one feels that there is a difference that we should be thinking about. So these are numbers that can be fluctuated, but they do apply to all users.
All residential, for example.
Yeah, and this actually, this
multifamily,
applies to
single-family.
residential to residential. You can't have your house be louder than 60 decibels during the day. Otherwise, you might be disturbing your neighbor. So it's not just industrial to residential. I think that's important to remember. This is any user to any user, but it's based on the receiving district. So I would be curious to get more community feedback on, if those numbers are correct, if those need to be adjusted. I think that'd be a good thing to hear community feedback on.
And so noise is under our nuisance code, correct?
It's under general offenses, so it's under the noise ordinance act, noise control. So it's not nuisance, but so it's technically outside zoning, but within zoning it references back to be compliant with this.
So just a general question that I guess I would have, and just relating to some of the things that you brought up. So if and as we're considering changing this, especially based on some of the public comments that we've received, I mean, this is something that could also impact, so say something already in zoned industrial in town, if we change these numbers, that could impact, I mean, they could be in violation of that, and it's not a grandfathering issue because it's a requirement.
Yeah, there's currently no grandfather clause that I'm aware of within noise control, so that is an important thing to be aware of.
Yeah, so we'll need to know before we figure out, you know, we'll need to know more about what issues we might run into when tweaking the
One example, I don't know all the sites in town, but Bobcat Energy, which recently came before, they did a noise study as part of that, and that was one of your agenda items or one of your attachment items. If we lower these at the residential, I'm pretty confident that they'll be in violation immediately because they were just meeting the residential requirements. So that's something to be mindful of, that you could be creating, and that may be a case. Maybe there needs to be, maybe it's not adjusting the numbers, or maybe it is, but adding in some grandfather language. I don't know if we can, but we can explore it.
Bobcat Energy's awful far from any residential, isn't it?
That was back in what, May?
It's clear out by the
Yeah, so that,
Alliant Power Plant.
that measure would be from the nearest residential area.
Yeah, in my backyard.
Sound study. Here's the Bobcat. Let's just pull this one up as an example. They have a map down here, so that's why I'm flying through. So that's where they measured to on everything. And so these residential numbers are probably the most restrictive. And here's they're showing some of their sound volumes. So the tables might be better. I would encourage people to look at this in detail if you want to, but I'm just trying to find the quick. So for residential 1, which we can go back to that map, with their new project, they'll be at 48 decibels when the requirement at night is 50. So they're just meeting the night there at residential 1, which is pretty much 18th Ave. So just as an example, that's one case study.
It's going to be very hard to take these down.
Yeah.
It's going to be almost impossible to bring them down because I'm torn because I hate noise. I hate it. So I you know, from one perspective you go, well, it's awful that something could be plopped on an industrial lot close enough to you that you hear it. On the other hand, the people that own the industrial lot are going to lose value in their land if they're limited to 60 or 50 decibels. Now the possible uses or who they could sell it to, fewer. So either way, somebody's losing value, which sucks. But I defer to, we've had this for a while and everybody's built their businesses based on it. It's going to take a lot for me to want to make any adjustment there.
Well, it looks like the current version was passed in 2020.
Do you know what they changed then?
I can pull ordinance 14999 to see. That predates my time, so I would have to look at that.
I can.
But yeah, we can look to see what.
Remind me, is 2 people talking is what, 60 dB?
The ones we hear outside and here.
Well, according to Google, moderate rainfall, normal conversation, 50 to 60 decibels. We are using amplification with this, so this is probably a little greater than 60 because of the microphone.
Yeah.
But if we were to shut that off, it'd be about 50 to 60.
Well, and
We're probably, I'm guessing, closer to the 70 to 80 with the microphone.
and I'll bet anything, if you and I are on opposite goal lines of a football field, we can't hardly talk to each other.
Oh, Zach, you got your machine. You can probably tell us what it is right now.
Clayton, what are the mechanisms? Because if it's an existing industrial property, and you bought a house and you're so far from an existing industrial property, that was part of buying the house, was a review of, hey, what's around me, what could develop. Annexation's a totally different thing. So what mechanisms are in place if an annexation happens, if we move industrial into areas that didn't exist prior, to force screening to try to limit the amount of noise? Do we have tools to do that?
Yeah, so let's maybe talk through the annexation process a little bit just to help inform and educate. Annexation procedurally is a legislative item that only goes to city council. So you would not review an annexation application. Any property that is annexed into the city is automatically assigned the zoning district of RL, low density residential zoning district. So that would be the base, what they're allowed to. So presumably a data center or industrial user would not be able to operate in a low density, so they would need to seek rezoning. That is where Planning and Zoning Commission gets involved and City Council remains involved, but you have some power there. Under Iowa code, we do have the ability to negotiate more restrictive terms to a zoning district upon mutual agreement. We'll rezone your property to general industrial contingent on you agreeing to X, Y, and Z. If you agree to that, they put it in writing, it gets adopted by ordinance, then they're bound by those regulations. So that would probably be the tool I would recommend here is development agreements or conditional rezonings. Could be a tool.
Just so everybody's information, that's only conditional rezoning's only been allowed for a few years.
Yeah, I don't know when it started. I started this career in 2015, and I know it's been allowed at least since 2015.
Right, but when I started in 1980,
Yeah.
it wasn't allowed. And I don't know when it went into the state code that it was allowed.
I don't know exactly when, but yeah, so that's one mechanism we could use there. If you want to develop here, that's our conditions.
I like the fact that it is allowed now because you can do stuff like that. So.
Appreciate the answer.
Yep.
Anything else?
I mean, I'm sure we could keep going and going, but if there's particular items, otherwise, I think I have quite a bit of homework ahead of me to get ready for the community roundtable.
Anything we can help you with, call us.
Yeah, absolutely. But if there's nothing additional on that, I can give some updates for your next meeting.
Okay.
As a reminder to those listening online and here in the audience, we are seeking a replacement for our vacant Planning and Zoning Commission seat. We are accepting applications through the 19th of this month. The mayor has indicated he would like to get those in, get them reviewed so that we could have a selection on the agenda for city council on what would that be, the 24th, is tentatively what the mayor would like to accomplish there. So if you have interest in participating in serving your community, please get your application in. If you're on the fence, reach out to myself. I'm sure John would also welcome you to reach out to him.
If you know somebody, encourage them to apply.
But I think the 19th date is going to be pretty firm there. We have been receiving applications, so but the mayor would like to get a selection there. For your next agenda item or next meeting, which would be September 17th, though I don't have any agenda items scheduled other than work session for this data center project as well. Certainly something could come in between now and then. I'm not no one's made me aware of any projects coming forward. So
That
I'd
works.
anticipate your September 17th to be just data centers at the moment. And I would like to have a first draft of regulations for review at that meeting, based on what we've learned in these today's meeting, last week, and the community roundtable. I think I should have enough ammunition to put together a rough first draft, and I will not take it personally if you mark it up with all red ink. I'll do my best to try and capture everything, but I do not expect that it will be perfect on try number one. And I will not take it personal.
The University of Iowa website that's got the data center information on it, the model ordinance they have listed. I read that completely, and it's got some good ideas in it and some good language. So
Yeah. So I'll certainly borrow from there, and
if the public wants to go read that, go ahead. It's online. It gives you an idea of the type of controls we're going to be putting in place.
I don't believe I have anything else, unless Deb, do you have anything?
I'm good, Clayton.
Deb doesn't have anything, so
Meeting's adjourned.
yes.
Quick question, just like with sound measurement, isn't that usually measured like at the residence? So it's not like someone's talking at the plant?
I'm gonna open this back up because we do actually tell how we
It
do
just
that.
seems like there might have been some misunderstanding on council.